Well, thank you. I wondered if we could see slide 18 again. It's the one that says, where are the hot residential properties? Great. I have it down as slide 18 in mine. My overarching question is, who ultimately benefits from land averaging? Not looking at the slide, but just thinking conceptually and at the highest level.
Yep.
Who is this set to benefit?
Properties that are deemed hot properties. So in particular this year, I actually have a breakdown. The majority of it is actually, they're condos, they're not single family homes. Single family homes in previous years, they were relatively hotter than condos. That's why they were the one benefiting. But this year, it's actually the condo, the strata units, they actually benefit more because their year-over-year increase is actually higher than the class average change.
But hadn't it been well established that condos were, relatively speaking, paying less tax than single-family dwellings?
You mean in terms of absolute dollar or year-over-year increase?
Well, absolute dollars, yes.
Yes, it's lower, only because their assessed value typically will be lower than single-family home. But in terms of year-over-year increase, because land assessment averaging is really to tackle the year-over-year increase. It's not about the absolute dollars.
Yeah, I understood that overall condos, yes, they are on average less than, say, $1 million a single-family dwelling average, but that the taxation rate would be the same whether if it say it was $1 million house or $1 million condo, it would be evaluated the same.
It will be subject to the same tax rate.
Okay, that's useful. Just looking at this map, I was struck by the fact that, well, again, we see a lot of concentration of red along arterials. And as you observed, in the communities in which the city has developed community plan property values in those areas, which I guess then you would be characterizing as hot properties. That would be a yes. So hot properties are being in the areas where community plans have been established, because I'm trying to get to the root cause of it. Is it because then developers know what the situation is in terms of zoning in these community plans so that they're more attracted to look at developing within their boundaries? Would that be accurate?
I would say not entirely. I think that definitely there will be correlation and some causation in the community plan area. But I've also seen that, say for example, along Oak Street or even Granville Street, before the City Council approved the Canby Corridor 3, there are actually no plans along, Granville and also Oak between, I would say, 49th and 41st, whatever. But you can actually see that there are a lot of single-family homes being scooped up by developers, and then they started changing it to townhouses, but we actually don't have a plan there. So that is not driven by city plan at all. It's just a market force.
Well, isn't there, though, an overall plan towards transit center development throughout the arterials of the city, emphasizing that those arterials are places where we should be putting density? So it's not unreasonable to expect to see a bunch of land assembly signs along those arterials. So I'm asking these questions really to point out the fact that the city is in fact creating these situations for the hot properties by virtue of its zoning and including community plans and transit plans. Part of this, of course, has me thinking about our citywide planning process as we move forward. And just so everybody has that in their heads of what the implications would be as we enter into a more fulsome citywide planning process on property values and therefore the proliferation of hot properties. I wondered, there's some areas there also that are not, that you wouldn't think that would be hot properties in sort of the more general fabric of the city. You pointed to variables that are affecting that, market pressure and so on. And so we understand the arterials, we understand the areas where there are community plans. Could you comment at all on where you think the properties in the middle would be attracting that kind of heat?
Unfortunately, I will not be able to do that. If required, I can actually get maybe BC assessment to maybe comment on that, and I can actually send it back to council.
So it's BC assessment then that is determining these hot properties as defined here rather than the city?
No, City of Vancouver defined the threshold, and BC assessment determine the valuation. So any kind of value above the threshold, that's deemed hot property.
So forgive me, I must have missed this. What is the threshold then?
10% above the class average change.
Okay, very good. Thank you. One other question that I had was we were talking about a benefit with increased value, and again, this is all, in my view, unrealized benefit until a property is sold. And presuming, of course, that it is the intent of the owner to sell the property and realize a benefit. But what I've been seeing, though, with purchase of properties where you're looking at a 25 to 30-year amortization, it's really the bank that owns it until such time as there is an exit on that property. And what we're also seeing, of course, is that interest rates, mortgage rates, are increasing precipitously. And so I'm wondering if this is being taken into consideration, because what I'm hearing from folks is that they're having a hard time with the cash flow implications of mortgage increases because of interest rate increases, and of course the corollary costs associated with taxation, property tax, and other kinds of taxes, whether it's, there's a whole smorgasbord of different costs that are being landed on property owners, whether they're in the residential side or the commercial side. So as we look, again, whenever I hear the word benefit, I just want to make sure, are we thinking about the implications of that unrealized benefit on the owner that has to absorb the additional costs of carrying charges over the term of their mortgage?